Today we will answer a very important question. How can you pay off debt faster? Ted is here. Let's begin.
This is Debt Free in 30. Here's your host, Doug Hoyes.
Ted, welcome back. This is episode number 569 of the Debt. It is. I actually added up every single one of the Debt Free in 30 podcast. And today we will answer perhaps the most obvious question that could possibly be asked on a podcast about being debt free. And that is, how can you be debt free faster?
Okay.
First question, who cares? What does it matter if it takes a bit of extra time to pay off your debt? As long as you become debt free, isn't that really all that matters?
Well, there's lots of reasons. The most obvious one is interest. Remember what we said in the past? Interest is the fee you pay for using somebody else's money. So the longer you're in debt with somebody, the more money you're going to pay them, which obviously means the less money you have for yourself.
So the sooner you pay your debt off, the less interest you have. So, okay,
Right.
So I want you to look at the script that you were just handed 30 seconds ago. That's how we do it here.
Right.
And I want you to give me the craziest example you can think of to illustrate your point about interest.
Well, so lots of Canadians own homes. They got mortgages. Let's say you've got a $500,000 mortgage, and just to keep things current, it's at 5% interest, right? So if you take 25 years to pay that mortgage off, you're going to pay total borrowing costs of $372,000. Remember, it's a $500,000 mortgage, $372,000 in interest.
Seems like a big number. Okay, yes.
But you pay off that mortgage in 15 years, your interest drops to $209,000. That's a savings of $163,000. Now,
there's a catch.
That sounds simple, yes. The catch is your payment, if you do it over 25 years, just under $3,000 a month. If you do it over 15 years, just under $4,000 a month. So you've got to come up with that extra $1,000 a month, but it saves you $163,000. That's more than most of us make in a couple of years.
Yes,
so.
that's clearly a big number. So, okay, so I still have to repay the $500,000 in principal.
You have to, always.
And so even with the reduced interest, like you said, $1,000 a month difference.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm paying $1,000 a month more for 15 years. So my monthly payments are $185,000 higher because it's $1,000 times 15 years. So that's $185 extra $1,000 I'm paying. Isn't that a pretty heavy price to pay to save $163,000? Like what am I missing here?
But it's not a fair comparison, right? So your the overall savings is $163,000. So it's not that you're paying $185 to save $163. You're simply paying $185 in that 15 years more than you would have paid if it was amortized over 25. The total amount you pay over 25 years is $163,000 higher than what you pay over 15 years.
Yeah, so I'm saving a considerable amount of money. Right. So, okay, so we've kind of just answered the question which we posed at the start of this. The obvious way to pay off debt faster is to pay more each month. Right. But there are other ways, and we're going to get to those shortly. Now, many of our listeners may not have a mortgage, but many of them, I'm sure, will have credit cards. I think with our clients, it's like well over
everybody,
like well over 90% have credit cards. So let's do the credit card math. And to illustrate this, I want you to use the posted rates for the largest bank in Canada, who shall remain nameless,
right?
Because they are not a sponsor of this show,
and they haven't given us a crown to wear on our head.
Exactly. Ooh, that was subtle. I wonder who the largest bank in Canada could be. So we're not giving them the free publicity here, but
right.
Based on when you go on the interweb there, what are the interest rates of a basic credit card?
So their basic credit card right now is 20.99% on purchases. So that basically gives you go out, use the card, you don't pay it off. Well, they give you 21 days to pay it off with no interest, but after that they start charging you 20.99%.
And if I get a cash advance,
so there's no grace period. You immediately start paying 22.99%. So there's a premium.
So you got to pay more if you're getting a cash advance, and there's no grace period. Okay,
right.
So I went on to the financial. What's it called here? I'll put the link in the show notes. The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada has both
their calculator.
Yes, they got both a mortgage calculator and a credit card payment calculator. I'll put them in the links to the show notes. So if you have a 21% interest, I know you said it's 20.
We're going to round it up. Okay.
$10,000 balance.
Mm-hmm.
If I only make the minimum payment each month.
Oh my gosh.
tell me how much I'm paying on my $10,000.
Well, so the total amount you're going to repay is $23,704. It's going to take you almost 27 years. So the interest is going to be $13,700. You're going to pay more in interest than you actually borrowed in the first place.
Okay, that seems like a lot of money. So that's why you want to be whacking away at your credit card. So now, okay, that's if I make the minimum payment. What if I throw an extra $500 a month at it? It's only a $10,000 credit card. If I throw an extra $500 a month at it.
Okay. So now instead of paying it off in 27 years, you're going to pay it off in 18 months.
That's way less.
Right. And the savings is going to be $12,121.
Right.
So remember, last example, so you pay the minimum payments and your total interest is going to be $13,000 and change. Now you're putting $12,000 back in your.
So I'm only paying $1,600 in interest over that year and a half. So okay, so there's probably a pretty big advantage to paying off your credit card as quick as you can.
Right.
That would be kind of what I'd say. So okay, the faster you pay off your debt, the more interest you save. Savings can be huge. So the obvious reason to pay off your debt faster is to save a lot of money. That's kind of a no-brainer.
That's an easy one.
Why else would I want to be paying off my debt faster?
Well, what's the second thing that most credit cards cost people every month? Stress. You know you've got that unpaid balance, it's got to be paid, and it's expensive. And so all of that, whether or not you acknowledge it in your in your ego, your id knows about it.
Yes,
I got all this stuff wrong
in your brain somewhere.
I remember taking a psychology course.
Yeah.
At some point, it's gnawing away at you, just like all the other stresses in your life.
Right. So if I have no debt, I don't have that stress of the debt. It's like pretty simple.
And that's a bonus, right? Because stress is the thing that kills us all.
Yeah, and to you and me, it's the interest is the big thing. We're accountants.
Because we're financial guys.
Right. But I can get it if you're not like us and I'm trying to convince you to pay off debt faster. Well, do you want to be out of stress? Yeah, that would actually be a pretty good thing too.
Yeah, there's a flip side to that too, actually, because as you pay the debt down, you get that little jolt of feeling good.
Dopamine, yes.
Is that what it is?
Sure.
So there's the added bonus. You reduce the stress and you feel better.
So you're getting a double whammy there.
Right.
So, and then I guess once I've paid off all my debt, that money that I was using to pay off my debt,
you can now try and save it or invest it.
So that seems like a pretty good thing too.
And so when you save or invest money, now someone is paying you interest for using your money. So now you've reversed the whole transaction, right? Originally, you're paying the bank all this interest because you're using their money. Now, somebody's paying you interest because they're using your money.
So ultimately, what you've got is freedom. That's kind of what you've...
Freedom!
There we go. Ted will not be singing. Is that Aretha Franklin? Who are you doing?
Must be. It was either that or I was going to do a William Wallace thing. You can't take away me freedom.
We definitely don't want
certainly
that.
Can't do that either.
Okay, so we're now going to move into practical advice before Ted starts singing. I know we're only 8 minutes into the show, but why not? So... Okay, so the background is the faster you pay off the debt, the more money you save, which means you can start investing for the future sooner, and you can probably retire sooner. Cool. It's all
good news. Yep.
So let's do the practical advice. We're going to start with the obvious strategies. We've talked about these a million times before, so we'll zip through this quickly, and then we'll get to some ideas we don't talk about much. And by the way, if you like practical advice, then click all the buttons on your YouTube there. We've got like over 18,000 subscribers, but not everyone is, not every viewer is a subscriber. So help us game the algorithm here. Okay, so what is the most obvious strategy mathematically for paying down your debt faster?
Well, so you can either increase your income, so you've got more money available to pay down the debt, or you can reduce your expenses, so you've got more money available to pay down the debt.
And in the short term, cutting your expenses is the easiest thing to do because, okay, I'm just not going to be buying coffee at the coffee shop. I'm going to make it myself.
It's always easier to reduce your expenses. Some big ticket items you can't. Your rent's going to be the same, your mortgage, you got a car payment, you got to pay those things. But maybe you can cut back on your coffee addiction. Let me just
have a coffee.
As he goes through his mug. Or there are other discretionary expenses that you can choose not to spend.
In the long term, increasing your income is certainly the best strategy because that, the top line, then there's more. If I can cut my expenses and increase my income, then fantastic. Now, of course, way easier said than done to do that. Okay, now the other topic, which I don't want to spend any time at all on, but everyone's kind of thinking about it in the back of their heads here. Yeah. Is the whole snowball versus avalanche thing.
What do you pay off first, right?
Right. What do you pay off first? So, okay, we know that snowball means I pay off the small ones first.
Right.
why would I possibly do that after we've already talked about the whole interest rate thing?
Well, because you get the immediate satisfaction of having paid off a debt, so the snowball's getting smaller. You're dealing with it.
Yeah, and I guess from a management point of view, if I got 6 different debts and they're all due on the different days, if I can get rid of that one little old cell phone bill, then that's gone. Only 5 things I got to worry about.
Right.
You and I are more avalanche guys,
right?
Which means pay the highest debt first.
Whatever the highest interest rate debt is, deal with that first.
Highest interest rate.
Because it produces the greatest savings for you.
Yeah, and the downside to that is, okay, well, I've still got all 6 of my debts and I'm doing a bit of juggling.
Right.
However, I agree with you. Pay the higher interest rate debts first because you're going to, get the biggest bang for the buck. Okay, so there's one more obvious strategy that we've already alluded to, so everyone, I'm sure, is already guessing what that's going to be.
Yeah, you shorten the amortization period, which is just our, accounting jargon for saying pay it off faster.
Right, and you already gave the example with the mortgage where you save like $160,000 by shortening your amortization period for 10 years. And with the credit cards, it was even more wacky.
Yeah, you saved $12,000 by paying it off, by adding $500 a month to your payment instead of taking 26 years.
So a year and a half versus 27 years, no kidding, you're going to pay a whole lot less. So, okay, the longer the loan period, the more you can save by shortening it. But this is the practical advice section, so it's easy for us to say, just shorten the amortization period.
Yeah, right.
That's great. Just do that there. We got a podcast. We're telling you what to do.
Sell your kidneys.
So, okay. So that's one answer. So
no, it's not. That's
so give me the practical ways then that you can actually do that.
Well, so most of your contracts, so I'm talking about mortgages, car loans, personal loans, all of these things will have clauses that say you can make additional payments towards them. Sometimes it's restricted to 5 or 10%. Sometimes there's no restriction whatsoever. But if you've got the ability to throw an extra lump sum at it once or twice a year, it can make a huge difference to your long-term interest.
So read the loan agreement is kind of what we're saying. And I think what you're talking about would definitely be applicable to a mortgage.
Certainly.
Because with a mortgage, almost if it's a fixed mortgage, obviously if it's a
almost all of them say you can make an extra 5% payment towards the principal every year.
Yeah. So I haven't read your mortgage, Mr. Listener, so you better check it. But
and all personal loans, even car loans in Ontario, which is where we're based, require that you can prepay the principal at any time.
Is that true?
Yep.
I did not know that. So everyone's going to fact check us in the notes and no, that's not true.
That idiot doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
So, and I guess, so making a payment whenever you can and then keeping it as short as possible when you start. Those are the two obvious things. So read your loan agreements. Some of them will allow, pretty much most of them will have a double up payment or whatever the thing is. So now I like the whole lump sum idea. So, I can, once a year, I can throw an extra X number of dollars against my mortgage or whatever. But, and that's even better for a credit card or a line of credit or anything which are completely open. But where is this magical lump sum going to come from?
So most people, it's a tax refund every spring, or maybe you get some sort of profit sharing or bonuses at work, or any kind of retro pay. Some kind of windfall comes into you that you didn't budget for, you don't use on a regular basis.
Right, a side hustle, or great Aunt Hilda dies, or whatever I feel sorry for her. But it's. And again, it's a difficult one because when that tax refund comes in, well, that's the money I use in the spring to get my kids their spring shoes, and or
whatever they need.
I got to pay for summer camp. I got to do whatever. So it's not as easy as what we're presenting it to be. But I think the basic point is you got your budget to the point where what comes in each month I'm using to live on. Anytime anything extra comes in, great, let's use it for debt paydown. Now, side hustles are the other way to do that.
Yeah, you just got to be careful with the side hustle that it may bump you into a higher tax bracket. So, I don't know, you're doing Uber or whatever it is you're doing for people to make some cash. Make sure you set aside enough money to pay the taxes on that income.
Yeah, because you get taxed at the end of the year on your total income, whereas your paycheck on any particular day is whatever the employer thinks that particular paycheck is.
Well, and your employer won't factor into your side hustle because they don't know you're doing it.
Right. And your side hustle might think that's the only job, and some of the side hustles aren't even taking taxes off. So, So obviously be very careful about that. Okay, I got another one for you. I don't know if we've talked about this very much. Micropayments. So how can a micropayment help you pay off debt faster? So let's start with the definition. What am I talking about when I say micropayment?
So it's a small, frequent payment you make throughout the month. So A typical example would be, let's say you get paid weekly every Friday. Your credit card bill is due once a month. Every Friday you throw something at it. That's a micropayment. That will decrease the amount of interest you pay over the course of the month because you're giving them the cash sooner.
Yeah, and I don't even think of that as a micropayment, but I guess it is. I mean, I guess if the definition is,
definition.
Yeah, normally I pay that bill once a month. I pay my hydro, I pay my credit card, whatever it is. Yes, if you get paid weekly and can therefore divide it up into 4 chunks and pay it every week, then not only is it a smaller payment, so it's a little easier to manage.
Well, and we're big believers of matching your expenses to your pay. So if you get paid once a month, then you pay everything once a month. You get paid twice a month, split it in half. You get paid weekly, we'll do it that way.
Yeah, and that sounds like more work, but I don't think it is because
it's safer work for sure.
Yeah, and you can't get into as much trouble. So if my cell phone bill is $100 a month, okay, I just go into the big computer thingy, or maybe you can do it on your phone. I don't know how to set up payments on my phone. Somebody probably knows how to do it. I have to do it on a computer, but okay, so I'm just going to pre-program $25.
His kids are both computer geniuses.
That's right. Well, they can do it.
Tell you all this.
They can do it. I just don't know how to do it. So,
right.
So yeah, I mean, I like it because reduced interest, like you said, the balance is going to be less if I'm paying it off earlier. I've also got more control. Like you said, I'm matching it with my pay.
Income.
So I know exactly what I have to worry about. I think it also gives you a better credit score. Now, I can't prove that, but we all know that credit scores are based on utilization.
Right. And so if you're paying it off more quickly, even if it's a little bit, it's got to be affecting your utilization.
You would think. Now, where I might be wrong on that is they aren't necessarily recalculating a credit score every 15 minutes. But I think it does get calculated pretty much in kind of quasi-real time.
I'm sure it does.
So it makes sense that the sooner you pay things off, the better your credit score is. Obviously, you got a much greater chance of avoiding late fees if you're paying early.
One would hope.
Like, isn't that what the late fee is?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it's also more motivating, back to your point earlier, that, okay, every payday I can see that my debt is dropping just a little bit, as opposed to once a month. So I think that's probably a good thing too. So now, the problem, of course, everyone's watching this going, so right now it's hard enough. I got these 6 different debts to pay. I got to do it once a month. And now you're telling me I got to do it once every week?
Do it every Friday night instead of going out.
So, exactly. Yes, that's right. Exactly. So my weekend now is doing all these micropayments on all my things.
We're not suggesting that.
What are we suggesting?
Well, so if you set yourself up on a financial plan, we'll use that horrible budget word, you can probably automate a lot of these things. So you're going to get paid on Fridays. Okay, every Friday, I'm throwing $25 at that cell phone bill.
Yep. And again, you got to ask your kids how to do this because it's, maybe you're not like me and aren't smart enough to do it. But it literally is that simple. So you got to start with understanding what your pay schedule is.
Right.
And there are some catches to this. If you get paid by check, then maybe you got to build a bit of a cushion into it.
Right.
Because if you're making the payment every Friday, but you get paid by check and take it to the bank every Friday, it's not there at 8:00 in the morning.
And Lord knows the bank may be holding funds on you for 3 or 4 days.
Yes.
Ridiculous.
So you got to understand that whenever you open a new bank account, then you got those kind of issues. But assuming you've been at the bank for a while, you get paid electronically, you review your pay schedule, you choose your frequency, you set the amount, and then you just set it up and off you go. So is that what our standard recommendation would be for most people? Or do you think that, no, there are times where you really should be looking at every bill and paying them yourself?
Well, I'm not a big fan of automation, at least when you start doing something like this. I think you got to spend the time, make the investment in yourself to keep track of what you're doing. And then once you're comfortable that things are working properly, then automate.
So I guess the problem with automation is, what if my hydro company screws up and overcharge me? Instead of $100 bill, it's $1,000.
Or whip it off the other way. So they've made a mistake in the past, and now your bills are lower, but you're still paying at the higher rate. So there's no point letting the hydro company have your money as a credit before you actually need to owe them any money.
And there is seasonality with your hydro bill, I'm guessing. You probably spend more on air conditioning in the summer than in the winter. So is there some hybrid model you can go with, though, whereby, okay, I've got everything is automated, but I also actually look at the bill?
Right.
So I think it's a problem that we don't get bills anymore.
Right. Do you get an email with an attachment says, this is what you owe us, pay us, and nobody ever looks at the attachment.
And then you click on the attachment, and it takes you to the site, and then you got to authenticate with your iris and your thumbprint and your two-factor and all that. Screw it, I don't really care. So do you actually save your bills?
I do not, because I know that they're in my trash. I could just search and pull them up.
So, and I do. I've got a folder, and I print. I don't actually print the paper. I get the hydro bill and I stick it over there.
Yep.
Now, have I ever looked at it? No,
but you might.
I might. I guess so. So, I agree with your point, though. That, and this is, I guess, where you say the line you say on every show that nobody cares about you, whatever your thing is there. What is it? Nobody cares about your money as much as you.
Correct. Nobody cares about your financial interests as much as you.
Exactly. We should just rename the podcast to that. By actually looking at your hydro bill, for example, I see, my hydro went up last month. What did I do differently? Well, I'll give you a compromise. So, all right, again, I want you to look at this stuff for the first little while to make sure everything is going the way you expect it to go. And then once you're comfortable, maybe automate some of this stuff, but you should still be on a schedule of regularly reviewing documents. So maybe you don't have to look at hydro every month because it doesn't change a lot. Or as you suggest, seasonality, you got to look at it when the weather changes. But there are things that you can put yourself on a schedule where this is less stressful, where it becomes a process that, okay, it's June, I need to look at these things this month. And I don't look at them again until Labor Day. I don't know, whatever. Yeah. And what frustrates me is I do pre-program everything. So, I don't automate it. I pre-program it. So
and you know what you're going to do when.
Yeah. So the hydro bill comes in, for example, and says, you got to pay this on the 23rd of next month. So I take a quick look. Okay, that's good. I go into my banking and I pay all my bills. We get paid twice a month here at Hoyes.
Middle of the month, end of the month.
So I'm either paying it on the 15th or the end of the month because that's when my paycheck is there. What frustrates me is that so I pay it on the 15th, and then on the 20th, I get the alert. Don't forget, your bill's due on the 23rd. No, so then I got to go back in and look, okay, did I not pay that? Yeah. And of course, I did pay it. So I find that somewhat frustrating. But so if you're the hydro company, listen to us. You are not going to be a sponsor here.
Another non-sponsor.
Exactly. Now, there is another way that is obvious to pay off debt faster, and we haven't discussed it. And the reason we haven't discussed it is I'm not a big fan of it, but in the sake of completeness, I think we should talk about debt consolidation.
So debt consolidation sort of is paying off debt faster. What you're doing is you're taking all of your smaller debts, whatever debts you have out there, and you're lumping them together into one monthly payment, into one obligation. The logic being, less to worry about, there's only the one thing, and almost always you're going to get a better interest rate, so you are saving money. Depending on what payment you're making, though, you may not actually pay the debt down any quicker. So there's a couple edges to this.
Yeah, so debt consolidation does not reduce your debt.
Right, it just reconfigures it.
Right. And so now you said you're going to get a lower interest rate. Well, maybe not.
Maybe not, depending on who you're consolidating with.
Yes.
There are some companies out there where the interest rates are not pleasant.
Well, and we have seen this. I mean, and maybe not every week, but we've seen it many times where someone comes in and they've got this big loan with that company who, again, we're not going to name them, but these are finance companies that are not banks.
They're second and third tier lenders.
Right.
Let's use that.
B lenders, if you want to call them that.
Mm-hmm.
And the interest rate these guys charge can be...
Well, legally they're limited to, what is it,
35% now, I think, APR, when you do the math a different way that we used to. It used to be 60%.
Which meant 47?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Different calculation. Well, if I've got 3 credit cards where I'm paying 21%...
And I consolidate them at 35%?
I've only got one payment, so it's easier to manage. I know what day of the month I got to pay it.
But
I'm now paying way more in interest. So when would a debt consolidation loan result in a lower interest payment?
Well, let's say you got credit cards with your bank, and then maybe someplace like Capital One, MBNA, the U.S. companies that have come into Canada, or American Express, whatever. Any of these, so they're all somewhere between 15 and 21%. You go to the bank and say, look, I'd like a line of credit or a loan to deal with all of this. Likely you'd get a significantly lower interest rate.
If you've got decent credit.
Right.
If you own a house and you're doing it as a HELOC.
Then you get even better interest.
Okay, then yeah.
Now you're eating into your equity.
Right. So but I would argue, well, you've kind of already eaten into your equity.
Correct.
I mean, you already got the debt. So I think a debt consolidation loan makes sense if you can lower the interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you better not rack up the old debt again.
Well, and so the second tier of that suggestion, based on what we're talking about today, is before I consolidate, I'm making payments to all of these debts. It's costing me $1,500 a month. I consolidate, now I'm paying $900 a month. Well, if I keep throwing $1,500 at it, you're really going to pay that debt down quickly.
Right. And we already showed the example of an extra $500 on your credit card.
Right.
You know, you're saving yourself 25 years worth of payments.
Mm-hmm.
So debt consolidation works if you qualify.
Right.
You're definitely getting a lower interest rate. If you can keep the payments the same or at least more than what they're requiring and
Right.
whack away at it quicker, and you don't rack up new debt.
There's the danger. The danger is that you double down. So you pay off your 3 or 4 credit cards, and instead of canceling them, you go out and you run them up again. So 6 months from now, you owe twice what you used to. In which case, you're probably calling us to do something else.
Well, let's talk about that to finish.
Okay.
So the other obvious way to eliminate debt is to either do a bankruptcy or a consumer proposal.
Right.
Now, absolutely, those will eliminate your debt. That's kind of the whole point of them.
Yep.
The downside is what?
Well, so the trade-off is whenever you do something outside the box, which is something that the credit system doesn't consider normal, there's going to be consequences to your credit report, your ability to borrow in the future. So if you file a consumer proposal, they're probably going to say to you, look, we're not going to issue you any new credit while you're doing this proposal because we want to make sure you deal with the old debt. If you file a bankruptcy, they're going to say, well, you got to reestablish yourself. We got to make sure that you're a good credit risk in the future. So there'll be consequences, a couple of years of awkward credit.
Yeah, in both cases, your credit report will take a hit. Now, in some cases, not much of a hit, because if you're already at a really low rate, then it's perhaps not going to matter. So you do have to weigh the two. If it's going to take you, based on your budget, 15 years to get out of all this credit card debt, then maybe a consumer proposal or a bankruptcy is a better option. Yeah, okay, I'm not going to be able to borrow for a while, but I can't borrow now anyways.
Well, and you probably shouldn't be.
And you probably shouldn't be. So that's why, obviously, we recommend you come in, talk to someone like us. Let's walk through the different options.
Right.
And we're always going to start with all those other things we talked about. Well, can you reduce your expenses, pick up a side hustle, do anything?
Is there a way you can work this out for yourself? Will the bank approve you for a consolidation, and will that be enough to save you? All right, well, then you need to be looking at a consumer proposal where we can dramatically reduce your monthly payments and eliminate the interest. None of these solutions that work, well, there's always bankruptcy.
Yeah, and I think when we looked at the numbers last year, our typical client had debt service costs of well over $2,000 a month.
And it was something like $2,700.
Yeah, it was a huge number. And of course,
$300 available to make the payments.
Right. They weren't actually making the debt service payments. That's why they came in to see us. And so the typical proposal we're doing is somewhere probably in the $300 to $500 a month range, I think now.
That's right. Yep, to pay off somewhere between $50,000 $60,000.
And of course, every situation is different. It's based on your income, your assets, your family size, and so on. But in a lot of cases, like, well, if I'm going to be paying $2,000 a month for the next 10 years, and I could be paying $500 a month for the next 5, I'd rather take the credit hit and do that. So there you go. That is the answer to the question. How do you pay off your debt faster? I think, Ted, you summarized it very, very succinctly. Deal with it on your own if you can. Consolidate if it's going to make things better. Otherwise, there are other options, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Of course, the best advice is not to incur the debt in the first place, but that's previous show.
Easier said than done if you can do that.
We'd be out of business.
Exactly. So this is our last standard format show for season number 10, because it is the end of July. No, not forever. Well, maybe. I don't know. See if we come back.
Season number 10.
Season number 10. And of course, seasons are just made up. There's no such thing as seasons in a podcast.
And how many sponsors have we had in those 10 years?
Zero. So this is show number 569.
Without a single sponsor.
Still no sponsors. So now for the month of August, we have 5 special format shows. So what we're going to do is assemble our discussions from the various shows, assemble them by topic. I haven't actually prepped them all yet.
We're not doing a blooper reel, right?
Well, we might. That's actually might be at the top of the list. So come check back next week and see. But, we'll talk about things like debt scams and managing payments and a few other topics. So make sure you've hit the subscribe button. You will be notified of every new show that is released on Saturday morning. And then we've got some new and updated topics that we will discuss in September. I want to talk about that recent Supreme Court case on this whole student loan thing, because there's some issues there. There's a Ontario court case on the whole landlord-tenant thing. That was kind of an interesting one. Might talk about that. That's all coming in September. So until then, thanks for listening and watching. I'm Doug Hoyes. That was Debt Free in 30.